This is WREG TV, Memphis. The following News 3 presentation is closed caption for the hearing impaired. Now, Jerry Tate, Mary Beth Conley, Sports with Les Smith, Brian Teglin-Weather. This is News 3 Tonight.
The focus on security in public places increases after an accidental shooting at a Memphis theater. Good evening. A teenager was killed in the shooting at the Orpheum.
It has the victim's family talking about the need for tighter security and stricter gun laws. Joe in Cardona shows you why it's stirring up an emotional debate.
17-year-old Mark Dobbins of Nesbitt, Mississippi, became a statistic last night, another victim of an accidental shooting. It happened at the Orpheum Theater during intermission of a gospel show called God's Trying to Tell You Something. Mark Dobbins was at the concession stand. A woman standing nearby dropped her purse. A pistol inside fired. Dobbins was hit in the chest. He died later at the Med. His family and friends have a lot of questions about what happened.
Why should a girl be at a place like this with a gun? Had there been security or some type of way of checking, you know, the weapon never would have gotten in there.
The Orpheum doesn't search customers when they enter the building. The theater's manager says that policy won't change.
It hasn't happened in this theater in almost 70 years, and it probably won't happen for another 70 years. It was an accident. Has nothing, I mean, this is society's problem that they allow people to carry guns.
At the Pyramid, handheld metal detectors are used at some events to make sure no one gets in with concealed weapons, alcohol, or drugs. It's only done when certain acts come to town who've had problems in the past.
We have a responsibility to all our guests to provide a clean, safe, well-maintained facility. We'll take the steps that are necessary to...
The Mid-South Coliseum also uses metal detectors at some events. We're told that may eventually be changed to include all events because of accidents like the one at the Orpheum.
What about the woman carrying the gun? Does she face any charges?
Well, that hasn't been decided yet. Police say the woman, 24-year-old Rita Garth, ran from the theater last night. She was questioned today. It'll be up to the Attorney General to decide if any charges will be filed. Right now, the shooting's being handled as an accident.
Okay, a terrible situation for both sides. Thanks, Joe. Jerry?
Carnival police are still looking into a bizarre incident that ended with officers shooting a man. Police say 45-year-old Felix Larquette was wounded when he threatened officers with a board. They say it all began when Larquette set his ex-wife's house on fire and wouldn't let firefighters near it. Police say they use their guns only as a last resort.
Officers fearing for their safety at that particular time and the safety of other individuals fired at the subject. And the officers themselves expressed that they, in statements, that they had used all force available to them before resorting to the firearm.
But at least one neighbor says police were not threatened. The two officers involved in the shooting, William Hamrick and Roy Sandiford, have been relieved of duty with pay.
Tennessee's special legislative session is over with no progress made on funding education improvements. After spending about $150,000 for the two-week special session, lawmakers were unable to break a stalemate on Governor Ned McWhorter's $928 million education and tax reform package. There's also little consensus on whether the money was well spent.
I think that it was important that we be in special session, that we be able to talk about those issues and just those issues at that time.
I contend that after these 2 weeks, that unless we come together, both Democrats and Republicans, and get our act together and realize we have a serious problem with education in this state, we can never solve it. I just don't think we're at that point.
The regular session opens next week.
President Bush is now trying to sell his new trillion-dollar budget. Democrats aren't jumping on the bandwagon, but congressional Republicans are. They gave him an A+ today for his budget and State of the Union message. In return, they got a pep talk. Mr. Bush says he's taking the first step for action on his economic plan by March 20th by laying aside politics. The Democrats, though, say it'll be Congress that sets the time. Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan is giving mild support to the president's economic recovery plan. On Capitol Hill today, Greenspan said he doesn't believe recovery depends on tax cuts. He said a small package to ensure a recovery is acceptable, but he urged caution.
It is terribly important that whatever is done, that we do not change the long-term or do not increase the long-term structural budget deficit. I think that actions to reduce it are crucial if we are to increase savings in the society and investment.
Greenspan believes a higher deficit would fan the flames of inflation and send interest rates up.
Despite the president's proposal to cut defense spending by $50 million, troops will remain stationed around the world. Pentagon officials say they've been criticized for not bringing soldiers home with the end of the Cold War. They say troops, though, are especially necessary in Europe to reinforce NATO.
And let's not forget that there are several wars going on to the east of NATO, in Yugoslavia, in Georgia, and other places that are still in quite a state of uncertainty and instability. This is not the time to bring it all back home to the United States.
And they acknowledge the administration will get more criticism for jobs lost to the cuts.
Much as I would like to be able to say to everyone, no one's going to lose their job, this isn't going to have a negative impact on anybody's community, I can't do that. The only way to cut the defense budget is to actually cut it.
And the solid rocket motor plant in Iuka, Mississippi may be in serious trouble because there's no money for it in the president's new budget. That means construction money could run out by October. But a plant spokesman tells us strong congressional support could still save it. And until the budget becomes law, it will be business as usual in Iuka. Sure.
Russian President Boris Yeltsin denies having a drinking problem and says he's in good health. Those questions surface again after Yeltsin disappeared for about 24 hours. In Moscow today, though, Yeltsin laid out a sweeping plan for nuclear disarmament. He's already ordered 600 missiles taken off alert. He promised his plan would not undermine the security of the Commonwealth, and he said the money it saves could help revive the economy. The Mideast peace talks in Moscow have ended on an up note despite the Palestinian boycott. The two sides talked of cutting defense spending, water sharing, and the environment. An Israeli spokesman said his expectations were fulfilled, and the Egyptians agreed, saying the meeting ended with some positive results. The Israelis even complimented the Arabs on their businesslike approach.
Those taped telephone conversations with Bill Clinton we've all heard so much about are bringing him more grief. Today he offered an apology to New York Governor Mario Cuomo because of them. On the tapes, the woman who claimed she had an affair with Clinton, Jennifer Flowers, says Cuomo looks like someone who would be in the mafia. Clinton agrees and calls Cuomo some dirty names. The New York governor says he doesn't want to get bogged down by the remarks.
He offered his apology. People can read it, judge it for themselves. I'm prepared to put it behind us and concentrate on the issues.
Mario Cuomo's known me since 1976, and he knows I'm not in any way prejudiced against either him in general specifically, or any ethnic group in this country in general.
But an aide to Cuomo says this could cost Clinton the support of the New York governor in the presidential campaign. Meanwhile, Jennifer Flowers has some problems of her own to deal with. Today, she was fired from her $17,000 a year state job in Little Rock. Her supervisor will only say she's been absent since Monday and has not called to explain. Of course, Monday is the day that Flowers held the press conference in New York City to talk about her alleged love affair with Bill Clinton. Flowers received an undetermined amount of money to tell her story in a tabloid.
More legal trouble for Imelda Marcos in the Philippines.
And an accused mass murderer and a prize fighter are both ready for trial. More on that in a moment. Budget cuts are hitting the courts in Memphis hard, but it's the poor who will pay the price. Pam Crittenden investigates problems at the Public Defender's Office. And a little later in Health Watch, how to avoid a real pain in the back.
Been a golfer quite like him, or a luxury car quite like Lincoln Town Car. The roomiest, quietest, smoothest riding luxury car you can own. Available now in a special Jack Nicklaus Signature Series with standard dual airbags, Oxford white leather seats, deep jewel green exterior, anti-lock brakes, and more. Drive for show in the limited edition Jack Nicklaus Signature Series Town Car. Available for a limited time at your Lincoln Mercury dealer.
You know, we have same problems as other businesses and everything. It's just in a kind of a different mode. The price of grain, soybeans, corn, wheat hasn't changed for 30 years. There's no inflation factor built into farming.
We have to get more efficient. We have to raise more bushels per acre to make it.
We are the factory, and Richwell manufactures and sells direct to you the Restonic Marvelous Middle, saving you more than half. Why pay retail? Richwell, now America's #1 Bassett Gallery, is offering this beautiful reclining Bassett sectional at incredible factory-sponsored savings. Just $9.99. Save on all Bassett upholstery during this factory-sponsored sale and make no payment, pay no interest for 6 full months. No payments till summer.
Richwell Bassett Gallery.
Memphis, South Haven, and Jonesboro, Arkansas.
With a 24-valve V6 engine, the new Lexus ES300 Sport Sedan will undoubtedly give you an incredible amount of confidence. Fortunately, it has a sophisticated anti-lock disc brake system for when your sanity kicks in. And with a price like this, you'd be crazy not to see Dobbs Brothers Lexus.
Governor Ned McWhirter's new state budget will cut still another 25% from the financially strapped public defender's office. As Pam Crittenden reports, the cuts will mean even more people will not get the legal help they're entitled to.
Sherry Cheslock is a private investigator. At times, she is called upon to investigate cases for the public defender's office. But the money that used to pay for that is all gone, and that leaves poor clients who depend on court-appointed legal help at the mercy of the system.
Everybody's in business to make money and to feed their families, and if you take the money away, then it's going to be very difficult to find an investigator that will go out and investigate a case and not get paid for it.
Investigators are crucial in the most serious of cases, specifically murder. Experts say sending a lawyer in to try a murder case without an investigator is like sending a soldier into battle armed only with a pocket knife. Investigators dig up the evidence which can prove a person's innocence or guilt. They can also save the court's time by determining whether it's better to plea bargain. The Public Defender's Office has about 10 investigators on its staff. Leah Abbott is one of them. She and the others were responsible for 28,000 cases last year. She's worried about what will happen when the recent loan to the Public Defender's Office runs out.
Oh, it'll mean that innocent people will go to prison. It will mean that cases that are so weak they should be dropped and save the court's time will be tried. I just can't really imagine what's going to happen.
Ralph Nally also investigates for the Public Defender's Office. He says the scales of justice are tipped in favor of prosecutors when there's not enough money to properly defend poor clients.
If the state is going to use an unlimited amount of resources to arrest and prosecute, then certainly there ought to be some balance here and to provide some resources to protect the rights of those who are charged and who may be innocent of charges.
Nally, Abbott, and Cheslock all agree. Ultimately, lawmakers and taxpayers will have to decide if a person's legal rights depend on how much money they have. Unfortunately for some, you can only get what you pay for. Pam Crittenden, News 3 Tonight.
Criminal lawyers want to take the state to court over the money issue. They say not paying the cost of defending a poor client is unconstitutional. Mary Beth?
Opening arguments begin tomorrow for accused mass murderer Jeffrey Dahmer. A jury was seated today and immediately sequestered, and complaints began about the racial makeup of the jury. There is only one black juror on it, and the family of one victim